Now it is.
All right, so let's look at this. So trying to think of it. So you're going to have so on the candidate info page, you're going to have name, address, phone number, email address, blah blah blah, all that happy crap. And the you know, the first portion of it, SC is going to stand for staffing company. Staffing company can put the first component of information in, and then more specific information that's personal to the candidate, they're going to, we'll call this PI, personal info, that basically information that's going to be on the resume, name, address, phone number, email address, they can put in here. Any personal information that we're going to need as it relates, we're going to need them to be able to add attachments. Like one of these attachments is going to be an I-9 form. One of these attachments is going to be a W-4 form. These are all pertinent to employment records, right? One of these tabs is going to be for driver's license. One of these tabs is going to be for social security card. Another tab for CPR card, license, so on and so forth as it relates to the particular skill set, right? So if they're a nurse, they have to have CPR card, ACLS, Advanced Cardiac Life Support card. They're gonna have to have their nursing license. So all these, this whole area down here is gonna be that personal information that no one else can see in the system at all except for the candidate. Until it's unlocked for the job order and the client themselves to be able to review it, right? So this is going to be a part of the application process that is going to be required by the client. And let's say if it's a healthcare client and the healthcare client needs all this licensure information, the I-9 W-4, there'll be a piece of this that, you know, will be unlocked for the job order, right? The rest of this information over here is just going to be specific to their contract rate. If they're going to be contractors, they're going to be a perm employee. But this information is going to be available and can be released when it's necessary. So basically upon candidate being hired, this information will be released to the staffing company that's going to hire them as a contractor. This information is released to the job order, to the client. All right, the end client. So, but again, this information, and again, we're gonna have to have some pretty impressive security protocols that allows this to remain secure, because this is, I mean, talk about identity theft. We're gonna be able to grab any information and become that candidate if we wanted to. So, this is the candidate, this is the basic candidate information, and then the next stage to this, it's going to go to candidate job info. And inside here, it's going to have the breakdown of the roles that they're interested in participating in. So role 1, role 2, role 3, if they have as many, and then their resume that would reflect these different career roles. Like I used in the example in the other video, so that it'd be the staff nurse, nurse manager, and then whatever else. And when they have role 1 is going to have its own separate set of buttons, if you will, that identify skill set. So this is going to be a skills. These are all the skills buttons associated with role 1. This will be skills as it relates to role 2, so on and so forth. Okay, and understanding that this is going to be mirrored by the job order. Okay, we'll get to that in another video. So after their roles are established, okay, they will also have their compensation for each of these roles. So if someone is going to be a staff nurse, it's a pretty laid back job. Don't really, that's just utilizing all my skills as a nurse, all these particulars as it relates. I want $40 an hour. Then if I'm over here as a nurse manager, well, obviously I'm doing my nursing responsibilities, but I'm also managing people, and that's a lot more of a headache. So over here, this may be $40 an hour, but if I come in as a nurse manager, it's going to be $50 an hour. Okay. And if they have a third role, fourth role, however many, but like eventually, I guess there would be a, role one, and then it would ask the question, would you like to upload a secondary resume for a secondary role? And maybe we even have an explanation as to what that means if a candidate is doing this without any assistance, which is what we desire. They enter their information in, and then maybe the next page after role one is completed, it says, do you have an interest in pursuing other areas of on your career path? And would you like to establish a second role with a second resume? So allowing that to present itself probably needs to be what happens after the completion of role one. And of course, each one of these would have a little plus sign so they can add more skills if necessary. Now we're going to have a skills data bank of information, and we're probably going to end up building a lot of that ourselves. So when they put a skill on here, when they elect a skill, they need to put this in order of skills that they possess in hierarchy. Actually, never mind, forget about that. That's not going to even be necessary. If they have the skill, they have it. We're not going to hierarchy it. What will happen in the job order, and the reason why this is important to explain and have this in the system, is because when a job order is created, I, the client, am going to say, I need a candidate with this skill set, and this skill set. And what that allows for is the candidates in the database to immediately match up with job orders when they're put into the system. And if I am going back to the other video where I talked about the staffing company having some relationship established with this candidate, first of all, I want to be clear, this candidate can be represented by 15 staffing companies. They can have as many staffing company relationships in the system as they want. The staffing company has to get approval from the candidate to be submitted to any job order in the system, which is where we have the text messages sent. Staffing company A would like to submit you to job order 1234, staff nurse at XYZ company at this city location. So when they approve it, then they can be submitted by the staffing company. But if you have a relationship with 15 different staffing companies, what it allows those staffing companies to see on their dashboard, they being the staffing company, if I log into the staffing company dashboard and I've got a new candidate that's put their information into the system, or I've got a candidate that's already in the system, that's probably more specific, because if they're new, I don't have authorization yet to work with them. Actually, let me back up on that. If a candidate puts their information in the system, whether I'm linked to them or not, they would show up on my dashboard. If I represent that job order, they would show up on my dashboard as a candidate that equals a certain percentage match, right? So if they're 100% here, 100% here, and 100% here, 100% match to a job order that I represent in the system, but I haven't established a relationship with that candidate, this starts that relationship management process. So this candidate could show up in every single dashboard in the system, and then the first staffing company that goes and speaks to that candidate and gets the approval through the text sequencing that we've discussed would get to represent that candidate at the client level. So, and I got to think through that, so we may need to massage that a little bit, But if staffing company A represents 10 jobs in the system and this candidate matches the job and it matches the same jobs that are represented by 15 different staffing companies, I think the tool in the dashboard should allow that to come through, and perhaps we do it in such a way that the staffing company identifies their top 5, and again, I'm just kind of spitballing some things here. The five job orders that they are trying to headhunt for that are the most important on their list. That's what shows up on their dashboard. Anyway, we'll study that in future calls. Anyway, getting back to this, so then the candidate, once their role's established, their rate has been established, the final section is going to be the staffing company authorization, okay? So if this candidate enters their own information into the system, they're not going to be connected to a staffing company, okay? What happens then is they just go into the database and they're searchable in the database by other staffing companies. So this candidate is going to show up on somebody's dashboard somewhere saying that they have this skill set, they live in this city, and they're looking for, jobs within a 25-mile radius of Austin, Texas. And all of this role information is going to be produced, and then the staffing company authorization comes into play on this screen only when the staffing company started this and put basic candidate info in here and uploaded the resume in role 1, okay? They're not going to fill the skill set out. The candidate has to fill that out. So when this link gets sent to that candidate from the email information that's put in this candidate portal, the candidate comes in and logs in and fills out the rest of this personal information, fills out their skill sets on their under role 1, has the option to fill out role 2, option to fill out role 3, so on and so forth. And the last page is authorizing staffing company who I've talked to submit my profile to the client based on the information we discussed over the phone the previous day or that morning or what have you. So once that's completed, they can authorize staffing company A to submit my profile. And that's when the candidate has been fully vetted into the system and now been matched to an open job. And one of the other things that I want to make note of is inside of the candidate profile, and again, this is, we're going down another wormhole, but this is important. I want there to be, in this section here, if a candidate wants to work in a 25-mile radius, there's going to be a map that puts their home on this dot, and then inside of that dot we could have a circle that shows their 25-mile radius, and then of course everything outside of that 25 miles, and everything inside of this 25-mile radius is going to represent, there's going to be a pin here, there'll be a pin here, could be a pin here, showing them the 3 jobs, and out to the side we can have job 1, job 2, job 3, that they could identify an interest in, that it's inside of their map wheel. Now, outside of their map wheel, and maybe just on the edge, there could be other jobs that they could look at, that maybe they're willing to up their mile radius. We don't know. And these little pins that are on this map would be other job orders that they may be interested in looking at, okay? And when they click on this link, it's going to show them the job order information, okay? If they're interested in that job, when they click on that link, it's going to mass broadcast to every staffing company that is working on this job order. And this candidate will now be in a hot candidate bin on the dashboard in every staffing company's bin, if you are, on their dashboard across the entire platform. So if I was a recruiting company and somebody hit my hot button bin, I'd be right on top of that candidate. Now, here's a key to help you understand why, what's going to be important about this direct link. If this candidate, so these show up, and maybe this map can't show up on this page because it has to link to this skill set information over here. Okay, so we'll massage this, but go with me on this and understand that when this candidate has this 25-mile radius after their skills have been populated, so maybe that map is being built over here and they can look at it. When they click this job order, the only reason why this job order even shows up on this map for them is because this skill set ranks them better than 75% of a match to this job order. Okay, so the candidate has to meet or exceed 75%, and we can play with that number. It doesn't have to be 75%. We'll massage that as we go, but some such percentage of a match with this skill set, and then over here on the other part of the system we haven't discussed yet, when the job order is put in, that manager is going to select the skill sets that are important to that manager for this future candidate. So when the skill set piece is put in, obviously if they indicate that they want to work 25 miles radius, this map would have to be produced obviously after the skill set match. So they're going to put skill sets in with their resume, and then the next page before the staffing company page would be, well, here's a map of all the open positions that are in the system, and here's the positions that you match, and even putting the percentage out to the side and let the candidate select. They could click every one of these, or they could click submit to all. And if they submit to all, then their name is going to be on every dashboard, probably in the entire Staff Elements system that represents the client that represents that job order. Okay? All right, so my brain's about to explode, so I'm going to pause for now and we can circle back and discuss candidate detail at a later date.
Okay.